Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss another Brexit poll that's been released with yet more spurious conclusions emanating from it. On this occasion, however, it's a bit different because the spurious conclusions on this occasion are coming from Brexit supporters. Indeed, the poll was clearly written for Brexit supporters. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, obviously, when it comes to politics, polling is incredibly important. People are sheeple, and our behaviour and even opinions can be altered by how we perceive other people behaving and viewing the world. Social compliance, powerful motivator. And because direct polling of the public on political matters hardly ever, if ever, takes place on particular issues, we spend a lot of time looking at polls. What does the public think of this? But polling is a mathematical endeavour. And not that many people are good at maths. Polling is worse as well, because the same people who understand that they're not very good at maths will still confidently see things in a poll or on a chart that just isn't there. In the past, some of you will know that I have cautioned against certain spurious conclusions from polls that purport to show a much greater level of support for rejoining the EU than actually exists. And it doesn't feel good, I have to tell you, to keep swimming against the rejoin stream. But I am a huge believer in not allowing yourself to be deluded. The problem is, if you're not facing up to what's real, you will not take the right action to get the right outcomes. And then you'll constantly be losing and not understanding why you're losing. You know, when it comes to politics, delusions are like a lead weight around your ankles. But this time, the poll is the flip side. I'll go through the poll first, then explain the Brexiteer take-home, then break down how it's complete nonsense. So here is the poll. It asks which Brexit statement is closest to your opinion. You have three choices. The first, we were right to leave the EU. Okay. Second, we were wrong to leave the EU, but now that we have done so, we should work to make the best of Britain's position outside of the EU. And third, we were wrong to leave the EU and should concentrate on reversing that decision as soon as possible. So Brexiteers look at this and they go, oh, only 24% opted to focus on reversing the decision. In fact, it looks like there are more people on the leave side than the rejoin. In fact, what's this? Even a majority of Remainers don't want to rejoin. But of course, that's not what the poll says. Take me, for example. I want to rejoin the EU with all haste. However, I couldn't answer the third of those. I wouldn't be too confident on the second, but I would pick the second out of the available options, not the third option. The reason for this is we can't reverse Brexit by our own will anymore. It's not up to us. The EU will tell us to do one. And that's not conjecture. They've been very clear. They will not even consider an application to rejoin until the issue is overwhelmingly settled in the UK. So even if people say, oh, Labour should get behind rejoin, there'll be loads of votes in it. Well, first of all, no, there wouldn't. Second of all, even if the Conservatives were replaced at the next election and another government, which would be largely Labour-led, initiated steps to rejoin the EU would say no. Because a few years later, the Tories could come back into power and smash the whole thing up again, wasting everyone's time. In order to rejoin, we have to make sure that no government that can realistically form would be opposed to this plan. We are some way from that being the case. It will be the case. Don't think to yourself, oh, well, how can that ever be the case, Conservatives? It will be the case. There will come a point where Brexit is so toxic in Britain that the Conservatives of the day will disown the current Conservatives, their former brethren, and become EU converts, as they originally were. Remember that their rancid wet dream Margaret Thatcher was a big driving force behind the EU. But the point is that an urgent rejoin is not on the cards. There's a process. I've talked before about the process needing to be, 1, remove the Tories from power. Nothing will happen until then. Nothing at all. Second, align more closely with the EU. The benefits will be immediate, leaving the public open to more. Third, negotiate a customs union. It's probably going to have to be a weaker one before the big one again. 4, rejoin the single market. This is now further down the line. 5, wait for the public to see that we have more power as EU members, because now we'll be back in the single market, in the customs union, we'll be economically on the road to recovery again, it'll be very obvious, but we'll also be seeing, but hang on a minute, we're following older rules that we're not making. We'd quite like to follow the rule, to make the rules that we're following. Well, how do we do that? Oh, we rejoin the EU. 6, at this point, the Conservatives will be forced to get behind rejoining or look like anti-patriots, really. Done. But these stages are not quick. And the first one will take at least another 17 months, at best. At best. And people seized of that notion will answer the second option of the 3 available. They could say don't know because it's none of them, but there you go. Those answering the second option are not saying we shouldn't rejoin, just that it's not the immediate focus, which it isn't. Now, I'll address a couple of points that I saw made about this poll being bad. The first was from someone who thought that it was odd. If you work out the maths, the proportions seemed a bit off compared to the original vote. In reality, it's not. Because the people who can take part in this poll now who will say they either voted leave or remain now are not the same people as in 2016. Without anyone having to change their mind. You know, the proportion of remain and leave vote has changed anyway, because the vast majority, like 3 in 4 or something like this, 70 to 75% of younger voters voted to remain. And a very similar vast majority of older voters voted to leave. Now, as there will have been many more elderly people die in the last 5 years than younger people, it's clear that a higher proportion of leave voters are no longer with us as compared to remain voters. Now, there are some very valid objections to the poll. Because ordinarily, when I discuss these things, I do discuss polls sometimes, I do like a bit of maths. Often, not always, often the polls themselves are fine. I don't take issue with the polls. It's the conclusions that some people are drawing which are wrong. In this case, the poll itself is the sort of thing maths teachers use when teaching statistics as warning signs of a biased survey. This is not what you do. So the first thing you note is it splits those opposed to Brexit into 2 groups. But those in favour, they're not split at all. They're in one group. They're all lumped into one. Now, with our first past the post mindset, this makes support for Brexit seem larger than it really is. But the poll still has 54% of people thinking Brexit was wrong, compared to 34% thinking it was right. The second objection is that the pro-Brexit response is nice and simple. Did we make the right decision? Yes, we did. Simple. But the other 2 are nuanced. An unbiased survey would have just asked if it was the right decision or not. Nice and binary. So people would either respond with yes, it was right to leave, we were right to leave, no, we were wrong to leave, or don't know. They could then divide those responses by how people voted in 2016 and then moved on to the nuanced questions about what we should do now. For those who thought it was wrong, they could then have asked, so what should we do about it? And there would be clearer options. Although the third response appears clear, it's not. Because it's not just capturing all those who want us to rejoin, but specifically those who want us to focus everything, like really concentrate on rejoining immediately. But if you're someone, like I say, like me, who goes, well, we can't rejoin immediately, even if there was, even if the government changed and it changed to a government that wanted to do that, it doesn't have the power. The second option, however, is all over. That doesn't even appear clear. It's all over the place. The second could be wanting to go out and keep getting these worthless trade deals. It could be rejoining the customs union single market. It could be just doing one of those things. It might be just joining the customs union but not the single market, or vice versa. It might be levelling up the country in the way that Johnson promised could only be done outside the EU. We don't know, because the poll didn't ask. And because there are multiple ways of working to make the best of Britain's position outside the EU, which includes full re-entry into the single market, all we can say for sure from those responses is that the people who answered that think the decision was wrong. So all we can actually get from that poll completely is that 54% of people think the decision was wrong. The middle option tells us nothing about the people who answered it, other than that they are against Brexit. They wish it didn't happen. We can't even say they don't want us to rejoin because, like I said, the third option was not for people who wanted to rejoin, but concentrate on rejoining as soon as possible. So if you wanted to take a longer run up, you would not tick the third option, but the second. So the only conclusion even possible from the poll is what percentage think the decision to leave was right and what percentage thought it was wrong. And you have to carry out a small sum to work out the total who thought it was wrong, because you've got to add up two numbers. And given that this is the only conclusion that may be drawn, the pollsters would have been better simply asking, was the decision right? Yes, no, or don't know. And because that was the only conclusion that it was ever possible to glean from this question, the fact that they didn't make it binary and also deliberately divided up the remain vote but not the leave vote means that the poll has been deliberately constructed this way in order to satisfy a particular customer. Do remember, when it comes to polls, some of them are done genuinely to show off the polling company's credentials. And Ipsos Mori, this one, is it can do the business. They know what they're doing. So when you see, for example, voting intention, they're not generally commissioned. When they are, you'll know about them. They're generally part of the shop window for the polling company. They're all done genuinely. But most of their stuff is paid for commissions. Now, people who commission them often will want to genuinely know what people think, like market research. You know, they genuinely, so the poll still will be well constructed from that point of view as well. But some people, when they commission a poll, want the results to be interpreted a particular way. They commission a poll to try and convince people of a particular point of view. And competent pollsters can readily oblige. Easy when most of the population is not mathematically trained. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.